I want you to join me on this journey. If everyone could please close their eyes and think about one injustice that affects you or that you deeply care about. Think about removing one thing that you wish you'd be able to change. Pick something that you want to change. If you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have thought of insignificant problems, things that were local to me and did not really impact society, like not having to do my homework or having too many activities. Since then, I realized as humans, we are more likely to take action if we're affected personally. Some of you may have thought of things like racism, climate change, human rights violations, or poverty. But how do you make such big issues personal? Expose yourself to issues of greater surroundings. Learn more about what's around you and how you can make a change. Today, I'm here to speak to you about 3 things you can do to create your ideal world. Empathy requires walking a mile in someone else's shoes, learning about how others feel when they experience an injustice. Expand your thinking and learning about things you care about can give you a more global perspective on things around the world. And lastly, empathizing and learning for personal growth are important, but taking action is where things really change. I'm going to share with you 3 stories that were transformative moments in my life and that have contributed to creating my ideal world. My journey to creating my ideal world began with Model the United Nations, also known as MUN. It started around the table, listening to stories of my sister and her experience developing a wider perspective of the world. The stories she shared sparked my interest in global issues. I decided to join MUN in grade 8 because I wanted to learn even more. When I went to my first conference, I was terrified. During MUN conferences, delegates role play actual United Nations committees and topics. Everyone in the room seemed so sophisticated, and I thought they were way smarter than me. During the first 4 sessions of the conference, I went straight to the back of the room because I was too intimidated. I was having my own struggle, both internally with my confidence and externally with the competition. While there, I paid close attention, and I realized I could reach their level, as long as I did the research and prepared. I really wanted to learn about global affairs, and I had set a goal of making at least one speech, and I wasn't going to leave until I did. I was scared, but I didn't let that stop me. After my first speech, I felt more confident. Participating in conferences meant I had to debate and prepare diverse topics, topics I probably would have never thought of, like vaccine development and illicit trafficking of firearms in Europe. As I attended these conferences, I became more confident. My understanding of the world broadened while I collaborated and met people from around the world, learning about their cultures and countries and how they were impacted by some of these issues made me care about things that didn't affect me personally. My sense of empathy was growing. One of my most memorable conferences I attended was in New York. We went to the United Nations headquarters where they actually deal with global issues. It was amazing to see how topics we tackled in mock debates were being solved in reality, and that hopefully that could be me one day. During that conference, I prepared and debated the topic of firearms. I found it devastating to learn how they were being manufactured in disadvantaged communities. Already vulnerable, these people in these communities were being paid next to nothing for firearms that are being sold at premium prices. Finally, these firearms were manufactured to intentionally hurt people. Whether it's some angry kid in Florida or it's guerrilla groups in war, every step of this industry hurts innocent people. If we're able to empathize and find things I care about, our actions would have longer lasting impacts on ourselves and those around us. I was transformed through my journey with MUN. I became more empathetic, expanded my learning, and took action actively by participating in conferences. I learned that issues are complicated and multifaceted, and that all sides have more depth than can ever be expressed. My passion for global affairs was sparked by my initial MUN experience. Author and activist James Baldwin once said, quote, "People who shut their eyes to reality simply invite their own destruction," unquote. If we don't learn and understand what's going on in the world around us, right now, when will we learn? Learning and understanding what's going on in the world around us and how we got here is a really important thing for creating our ideal world. After my MUN experiences, I realized that I gained an appreciation for history. I started listening to more podcasts and having more intellectual conversations with my family. We watched what was going on in the world together. We discussing topics like the Taliban regime of Afghanistan and the suppression of women's rights, or looking at this displacement of the Palestinians. I realized the importance of learning and understanding the world around us. No matter how conflicts, no matter how geographically distant, have a tangible effect on my outlook. In my socials class, we always start off with current events. My teacher brought up the Uyghur Muslims in China, sharing us the details of their situation. Uyghur Muslims in China were being detained and sent to re-education camps due to their religion and beliefs. I was surprised that something like this was still happening in the world today. I went home and looked it up because I couldn't believe it was true. While researching the Uyghur Muslims, I found out that it was a true story, and I asked myself, why would anyone do this? I discussed the Uyghur story with my family that night and became more concerned and felt connected to the Muslims in China. I understood that could have been me. I'm a Muslim boy, I just happen to live in Canada. It's a question about geography. I also realized that history was repeating itself. Not only was this happening, but there was no valid reason behind any of it. The definition of genocide is, quote, "the deliberate killing of large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group, with the aim of destroying that nation or group," unquote. Wasn't re-education camps just one step away? You're eradicating an entire culture. You're just not killing them. During the World War II Holocaust, the Jewish community in Germany had been sent to concentration camps, and honestly, in today's society, I would have never believed that we would have a version of concentration camps. When we learn and understand our past mistakes, we are able to avoid repeating them in the future. When you invest your time and effort to learn and understand more about something, there's an instant reward of educating yourself and others. Like the example of the Uyghur Muslims, being able to learn and understand injustices and problems around us help us to be able to take action to achieve our perfect world. Lastly, the final thing is to take action in what you believe in. Even if our actions are minimal, it's still the right step forward to creating our perfect world. My personal story of taking action was last summer when my family and two other family friends went on a trip to East Africa. We visited an orphanage called Watoto located in Uganda. While there, we donated old sports equipment and throughout that journey, visiting the orphanage in Watoto was for sure the highlight of my trip and a memory I will always look back on. Recently, the people who run the orphanage had contacted us with a new project. They have asked my sister and I, alongside our two family friends, to raise money for girls to get back into the Ugandan education system since the pandemic. This small gesture we made ended up becoming an ongoing commitment to taking action about something we all cared about. While making this donation to this orphanage seemed like a small contribution, it is now something bigger and more meaningful than I could have ever imagined. Ways you can take action starts by learning about yourself and what you care about, then learning what's going on in the world. Growing up, I've been asked to think about things like who am I and how is my faith involved within myself? If you can answer these two things, then ask yourself, what can I do while I'm here? The best way to get involved is to join school clubs like MUN, joining extracurriculars like volunteer work, or joining activist groups like environmental groups. These are some of the best ways to take action or even just get yourself informed on things. Taking action is the last thing in order to creating our ideal world. This allows us to help us remove injustices that we think the world still faces today. There are tons of examples of people our age who have made the world a better place, from the Kielburgers to Malala and the impetus for creating social change, and often does come from youth who aspire not to fall in traps of history. Taking action is where all your hard work and dedication to making change becomes a reality and helps to create that change we all strive for. No matter the path you take to making the change, it benefits you and the world. The steeper the path is to achieving your goal, the more rewarding it is once it is attained. Personally, being able to connect and help the orphanage in Uganda was my way of continuing to make change on things I cared about. Looking back at my three things, my empathy came from my understanding that the only thing that differentiates me from the Uyghur Muslims is where I live. Informing yourself on what is happening, and lastly, walking a mile in someone else's shoes. We can take action, and together, I believe we will conquer any problems we face as a society. This system has allowed me to develop my understanding of the world, and as well as change my perspective to look at things differently. Now, I want you to go back to that one injustice or problem you initially thought of. And now, I want you to think about how you can make a change using these steps. John F. Kennedy once said, "If not us, who? And if not now, when?" Thank you.